Over the last 3 years, I've hired dozens of media buyers, I've done close to 100 interviews, and I've read thousands of resumes. And I can tell you one thing, finding a good media buyer is a cheat code for growth. Because a good media buyer can be someone so much more than just launching ads and pushing some buttons. They can be strategic thinkers, they can identify opportunities and issues, and they handle probably the biggest expense in your business, which is advertising spend. They can single-handedly positively or negatively affect your bottom line or your client's bottom lines if you're an agency. And it probably doesn't come as a surprise that this is the hardest position to fill in Smart Marketer, because we're looking for someone who both has analytical skills and creative skills. We're looking for someone who can also look beyond the ads manager, look at the funnel, look at the pages, look at the average order value, and think about the business like an entrepreneur. And we also want to find someone who is a good culture fit and fun to work with. In this video, I'm going to explain to you my process to find top 1% media buyers. And this process has 4 steps. First, obviously, getting applications. The second step is interview 1. The third step is the assessment. And the last step is interview 2. So let's get started with first getting some applications in. And obviously, it starts with the job description. And here you can see the job description that we have for Meta Ads media buyers. I'm going to put a link in the description so that you can use that for your own business if you want. And this is not rocket science, but the job description's goal is to give a very clear representation of the person that we're looking for. Now, for me, the most important part of this job description is the requirements. For us, that means that we're looking for someone who has experience at least spending $30,000 a month on one single ad account. We know if someone has that experience, we can train them to handle bigger budgets if they have the problem solving and reasoning skills that we are looking for. But I also know that if they don't have experience spending more than $30,000 a month in an account, which is less than $1,000 a day, it's probably not a good fit for us. Now, this might be different for you, because if you're a local business, for example, or you have a small agency of a smaller business, it does make sense to look for people with a bit less experience. Nonetheless, it's not as much about the budget, it's all about the ability to problem solve. And we're gonna come back to that later in this video. For us, it's also a really good sign if we see that someone has experience using third-party tracking tools, such as Hyros and Triple. So that's why we also put that in the requirements. We've also noticed that most of the media buyers that we work with that work out really well and that are fantastic team members have actually 5 years of experience or more, though we're open for people that apply that have more than 2 years of experience. We hire a lot outside of the US and especially in Europe. We have team members in Portugal, in the United Kingdom, in Bulgaria. And to be honest, it's not that we really went looking in these places for team members, but just this naturally grew over time and we just found top star media buyers in Europe. And to be honest, I don't care where people live, as long as they have an overlap of 4 to 5 hours with EST. And this generally works well in Europe, and this is much harder in Asia, for example, due to the time zone. Now, if someone is open to work night hours, then that's totally fine with me. And I've tried to hire people in other parts of the world as well, but for now, our best hires come from Europe or the US. These are not the cheapest areas to hire, and specifically if you're a remote business and you can basically hire from anyone all over the world, you know that, for example, hiring in South America or the Philippines, the rates are a bit lower. Now, I'm not against hiring outside the US or Europe at all. We have fantastic team members in South America and the Philippines. What I am trying to do is find the best people for this role specifically with the most relevant experience in a time zone that works. And so far, actually, Europe has been proven to be the winner, but also we've hired in the US. And the thing is, you just want to have the best people for this, because you do not want to cheap out on a position like this where someone is handling your biggest expense in your business, which in this case is advertising spend. So now that we have a job description, let's get some applications in. So far, I've had the most success with LinkedIn job posts and team recommendations. I also have tried to work with recruiters, but to be honest, that hasn't really worked out for this position specifically. It has worked out for other roles. So let's start off with the team recommendations, and let me tell you a little story. So Diljana is currently the manager of advertising. She basically runs our paid traffic department. And when we started the Smart Marketer agency, our first hire was Dennis, who's an absolute rock star. Diljana went through our normal hiring process, and to be honest, she didn't do that great. So therefore, I decided not to hire her. And this was a big mistake, because even though she did not do very well in the hiring process, the fact that she was referred by Dennis, who is a superstar and a fantastic person to work with, this should have been the main reason and the only reason for me to immediately say, I'm going to hire her. My biggest lesson is that team recommendations should always weigh heavier than, for example, an assessment. And obviously you want to have a conversation with this person, but it's such a snapshot in time that it is very hard to get an idea and a feeling for someone anyways. And you have someone in your team right now that you know, that you trust, that has expertise on that topic, and they say, hey, this person is really well, I've worked with them, they are great teammates, and they are very good at what they do. That should be a reason to basically immediately hire them. You probably just want to have an interview to confirm that, but this should probably be enough reason to actually hire someone pretty much right away. But we also know that team recommendations are inconsistent, meaning that they don't always have someone in mind when we are hiring for a specific position. So therefore, I have used and successfully used LinkedIn jobs a lot as well, but there's a specific process to it. So LinkedIn job postings are very similar to ads, where you're basically paying for your job to be shown to potential applicants. And to some extent, it's the exact same thing as a funnel. So you're paying for eyeballs on your job posting, then your job posting should be pretty good, so that you're pre-qualifying people with the description and the requirements, and then there should be the next step, the link click, what it would be in the ad. So let's go through that right now. And what you're going to find with LinkedIn job posting, that it just requires quite a lot of volume, especially if you use a normal process. So what we have started to do recently is we use the same job description as we, for example, have on our website on Workable, but we add a link to a Google form in the bottom, as you can see on this screen. And the only thing that we do, we basically disregard the applications through actually LinkedIn, but we only look at the people who actually fill out that form. That for us has proven to be a great way to get high quality applications through LinkedIn. So with the Google form, what we're trying to do is gather just a bit more information about the person. We're trying to get a feel with a few questions about what someone's experience actually is and how qualified they could be. It shouldn't take longer than like 5 to 10 minutes for an applicant to actually fill this out, but it does give us a much better idea than just a resume. After someone fills that out, we actually obviously get it, we look at that, and based on the people that fill that out, we select 20 to 30% and we invite them to the next step, which is actually interview number 1. And I like the first interview, to be honest, to be fairly relaxed and not too formal. My objective is just to get to know them. Why are they looking for a new position? What has their previous position looked like? What did they like? What did they not like? What are the certain things that they really enjoyed? But also, what are their goals and objectives for the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years? And then I just like to have a conversation about what's the state of the industry, how you're looking at AI, and also like, what do you like to do in your personal life? The only objective is to be like, to understand why they are looking for a new position. Do they seem like a nice person, and does it make sense to basically take them to the next step, which is the assessment? Something that I always discuss in the first interview is salary expectations, because I do not want people basically to do a whole assessment and then I come in with super high expectations from salary and something that I cannot offer. Most media buying positions pay anywhere between 40,000 a year up to 100,000 a year, and it does depend on experience and location. So I always ask, hey, what is your salary expectation? Because I've had plenty of people that were hoping to get 150,000 a year. And then I'm just very frank and upfront to be like, hey, I'm really sorry, I cannot offer that. Here are the salaries that we are offering for the different media buying positions. Now, different media buying positions, we personally do not work with very junior people. We either hire a mid-tier media buying position or we have senior media buyers. And by the way, I have also noticed that high salary expectations and also when you actually pay a high salary do not actually equal results, because we've had people that we have paid high salaries and actually that did not work out at all. Now, we have also had people who had very modest salary expectation and have absolutely excelled in our organization and who we have been able to promote a few times and who are now actually earning quite a good amount of money. Now, this first interview takes about 30 minutes. Now, if I find that this person indeed has relevant experience, it makes sense why they're changing position, they have similar salary expectations as we can actually offer, I invite them to the next step, which is the assessment. And in this step, we're actually going to see them in action. Now, completing this assessment can actually take a few hours, and we want to tell them that in advance because we don't want them to rush this. We want them to take their time to actually put in the work in the assessment. Now, the goal of the assessment is to get a good feeling on how they would run accounts. skills and just their marketing knowledge in general. Now, if they're also using AI, even better. Regardless if someone uses AI or not, they still have to understand what is a good hook. They still have to be able to identify customer personas. And they still have to understand what good ad copy looks like. So AI tools don't replace that right now. They just amplify someone's ability to produce these assets. And the most important thing is actually to understand the reasoning. That's really the main objective in interview 1, the assessment, and interview 2. Because even if their answers are not 100% accurate, if their reasoning makes sense, then that's a very good sign. So after the interview, we literally just mail them this assessment and we add them to our business manager and give them access to specific ad accounts. Then they have all the information to actually complete the assessment and submit it. So the assessment has a few goals, we're saying. It's like test marketing knowledge, problem solving, media buying skills, copywriting skills. And we're giving them very clear instructions on what they should do, how they should submit their answers. Now, the most important part of this assessment is actually diving into the ad account, and they're going to have to do a couple of things in there. So one of the strategies to scale up an ad account is identifying new customer avatars or personas. So what we're actually asking them to do is to identify 3 different customer avatars to advertise the Spiral dashboard. So this is a specific ad account that we are running. So we're telling them, hey, please write this answer in a Google Doc. Next, we're asking them to find 3 interest-based audiences that haven't been used or tested yet. Then we're asking them to set up the campaign, and we're basically telling them, hey, how would you set a campaign where you're testing these audiences? Also, don't publish it, but keep it in draft. We're giving them the freedom to choose whatever ads they want. So this is a really good example where we're giving them instructions on what to do, but we're giving them the freedom to actually select certain ads. And it's very interesting for us then to actually see what ads they are selecting. And then we only want to listen to their reasoning to why they chose those ads. Then we're giving them instructions that they need to record a Loom video in which they explain how they set it up, what the audiences were that they found, and what metrics they were looking for to actually, if they would actually run this campaign. Now, next up, we're asking them to set up a scaling campaign. So we have an interest testing campaign, and now next we're asking them to set up a scaling campaign. So we're telling them, hey, you can use any audience, budgets, and ads you see fit. So we give them a lot of freedom. And again, we tell them keep it in draft and record a Loom video and explain again what you did and why you did it. Then we're continuing asking them more about copywriting. So we're asking them to write 2 hooks for the Spiral dashboard. Now, this might be one of the most important marketing parts, I would say, of the assessment, because someone can be a really good button presser, but how good of an understanding do they actually have of hooks? Now, right now, you can come up with a lot of good hooks really fast using the deep research functionality from, for example, ChatGPT. But the thing that AI doesn't replace is the ability to actually find and recognize good hooks. And again, we're telling them, hey, just write it down in a Google Doc, and then we're going to move on to creatives. So we're basically asking them to come up with 2 new creative ideas for one specific offer, an image ad and a video ad. And then we're also asking them to clarify for which avatar these ads are and what type of copy they would like to use with it. And then we're giving them the instructions on what to do with the image ad and what to do with the video ad. We're telling them, hey, write this answer down in a doc and then delete the draft campaigns. So with this assessment, we're able to touch upon different parts. How do you set up testing campaigns? How do you set up scaling campaigns? What's the reasoning? What metrics are you looking for? But also their marketing knowledge, like go find good hooks for this specific offer. Hey, what different customer personas can we potentially actually go after? And then what type of image ads or video ads would you actually like to use for this specific offer? So we're touching upon the main categories someone is touching when they're actually running an ad account. Now, submitting the assessment is also a really important part because the assessment says very clearly how they should submit the assessment. For me, it's really important that they follow the instructions exactly as the assessment says, because if they're not, they're probably not very detail oriented. Now, this doesn't mean if they're not following it exactly that I won't hire them, but it's certainly positive if they follow my details and instructions exactly as described. If the assessment looks good, then I invite them to the next and final interview. Now, I don't do the last interview on my own. At this point, I bring Tiljana, who's the manager of advertising, or Dennis, our director of advertising, in to actually help me on this interview. Because this call is going to be a very tactical, in-depth conversation about one, the assessment, and just generally how they approach different situations. And the thing that we're doing over and over again in this interview is ask why. We want to understand their reasoning. If we see that they set up a campaign in a certain way, we ask them why. We ask them why over and over and over again to see if we can follow the reasoning and whether it makes sense. And again, it doesn't have to be 100% accurate every single time, but if their reasoning is good, that is a really, really good signal, because that also means that they can probably be trained very well. If their reasoning and problem solving makes sense, and even if they don't have the exact abilities and capacity that we want to have right away, we know that within 3 months, we can probably train them up that they're exactly at the level or beyond that we want them to be on. And obviously, we also want to make sure that this interview is also pretty fun and pleasant, because we want to find someone who's actually also fun to work with. So what I'm really looking for in this interview is also if someone is looking beyond the ads manager. Are they actually diving into the backend to make sure that the numbers in the ads manager are verified with the backend? Meaning, are they not just stuck by Facebook attribution, but do they look at the business holistically? And after this last interview, we make a decision whether we're going to hire someone or not. And if you don't have a lot of media buying experience yourself, the thing that you want to do in this interview is just ask them to explain their reasoning, record the call, and send it to someone who does have the experience, because that person will be able to pick up fairly fast if this person actually knows what they're talking about. Even after doing this for 3 years, about 40% of the people that we end up hiring don't work out within the first 3 months. And there can be multiple reasons for that, but the main one is just not the ability to keep up with the standard and quality of our work. So for us, we notice it's also really important that we don't just give them ad accounts from day one. We have new hires shadow our team members, and those team members work with them closely and actually give them little tasks for us to actually see and observe how they are doing. So even though we're hired them, officially we're not trusting them yet with ad accounts. So I hope this was helpful. Thanks for being here, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.